Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're taking another look at Immortal Realms Vampire Wars, an upcoming turn-based strategy game where you lead one of 3 vampire factions across a set of story-driven campaign missions or in Sandbox mode. I took a look at some standout aspects in a video I released earlier this week, and you'll find that linked down below in the description and under the eye at the top right corner of the screen. Now today, we're watching the full chat I got to have with the developer in a demo from a couple of weeks ago. Just a heads up, there were some synchronization issues with the audio and video, so I've gone in and cleaned it up as best as possible, but I apologize if there are still some spots where it's not perfect. I was as thorough as I could be. Now without further ado, let's dive in.
Alright, cool. Well, I'll give a quick pitch anyway first, start off. So Immortal Realms Vampire Wars is turn-based strategy game that combines the tactical combat, empire management with a dark vampire theme. So feel free to ask any questions at any point. So we have 3 basic modes of play. We have a skirmish mode, which is your more instant combat. You choose your army, choose the enemy army, and just battle out to try different units. We have a sandbox mode, which is your more traditional 4X gameplay, where you just choose which of the vampire clans you want to play as and then choose a map, and then it's more of a free-for-all. And we have the campaign, which is the main mode of the game. So here you play as I mentioned, we have 3 unique vampire clans in the game, each with their own part and story. So we have the Dracul campaign, which are more heavy armored warrior type vampires. These are all about brute strength and spilling as much blood as possible on the battlefield. We have the Nosfernos. These guys are more ancient, almost undead vampires. They're all about spreading corruption and destroying everything in their way and raising undeads.
Interesting.
And we have the Moroia, who are your more highborn, beautiful vampires. These guys are all about magic and trying to use their vampirism to push their magic abilities to the very edge. So as you can see, we have 4 missions for each of the clans in the campaign, for 12 missions total, and it's one continuous story. So you play through the 4 Dracul campaign missions, and then you unlock the Nosferatu campaign, and that continues the Dracul story. So what you do in the Dracul campaign kind of sets off the Nosferatu campaign, and the same then for the Moroia.
Got it. And how long is the campaign approximately?
I would say each mission is maybe between an hour to 2 hours, so you can get around 24 hours of game time for the campaign alone.
Very cool. Awesome. And that's just the campaign.
Yeah, and then you can play sandbox mode. You have all the 3 different clans there, and 4 different maps, so a lot of game time there as well. So we start each of the campaigns with 2D cinematic and some backstory for the clan, so I'm just going to let this run so you can kind of get a feel for them.
Really like the art style.
Thank you.
Now, I'm curious, as this is playing back there, are there plans to add more vampire factions or anything? Any like DLC or post-launch ideas?
Not yet. We'll see a bit how the launch goes. One of the things we have been discussing internally would be to add the human faction that is kind of an adversary during the campaign as one of those DLC factions.
Oh, cool.
Flames rise towards the sky and sounds.
Awesome. So there are plans on adding more variety if people are enjoying the base game, probably getting some more factions in there. Cool. All right.
So what makes the campaign kind of unique and different from the sandbox mode is these mission rules that we kind of use to unlock certain parts of the functionality of the game, add and tweak others, so that the missions aren't just sandbox modes with a different objective. It's a little bit, you have to tweak your play style.
Right, I like that.
We also have these in-game cutscenes at the start and end of each mission to try and tell this and this is where we mainly tell the story. So I'm going to skip this for now just because we're a little bit short on time. So
sure.
But we're about to find out.
These mortals should know better than to rise up against us. Forward, my brethren.
Alright, so like a lot of these types of games, we've kind of split the game into 2 modes. We have our kingdom mode, as we call it, where you get an overview of the world, you recruit armies, move your units around, and then we have the combat mode, which I'll get to later. as I mentioned, the campaign is very objective focused. So right now I need to investigate the human keep, find the source of the rebellion, to figure out what these guys are doing, why they're attacking our land, pretty much. Unlike the sandbox, where you mainly have, and this will then change once I get there and I get a new one for this mission. The sandbox is more, all right, gain this much blood or claim these many keeps.
Right.
So as it is a vampire game, the main and only resource in the game is of course blood. So you use this for upkeep for your armies, recruiting new units, and other upgrading buildings and so forth. Here we have our first army, led by Cecilia Dracul as the lord or general of the army. Our lords are kind of our hero characters. They have a bunch of keywords and they give them increased functionality and higher stats than your normal units. We also have in this army some Finnblood Spearmen, which are your basic tier 1 tanks, and some Finnblood Archers, the basic ranged units. Our world is also split up into provinces. These are these can contain buildings where you can recruit units, or so like say for instance cities and villages here, which are more basic economical buildings.
I see.
So, yeah, and moving your army, of course, costs action points. So this is how we limit how many actions a player can do per turn. So I'm going to move to the city. It will cost 2 action points, and whenever I want to regain more, I'll have to end my turn. So I just keep moving along here. And we encountered an enemy army. And as I mentioned, we don't have any action points, so I can't really do anything here now other than to end my turn.
Humans. It's
Right.
time to feed my kindred.
And that, of course, lets all the other factions do their actions, and then he actually decides to attack. So I get a bit overlook, see what is he attacking me with, and I can compare our armies. The game predicts this to be a certain victory, and normally those would be very safe to out-resolve, but for this, seeing as this is the first battle of the campaign, we want to make sure people play this first fight, so we'll jump into it as well.
Sounds great. That's my motto.
Yeah.
Now it looks like the overall campaign map is pretty tight, like sort of small and dense. Is the idea for everything to be very aggressive, or is there a slower way to play as well?
For this first mission, we've kind of unlocked some of the more, I guess, macro parts of the game to just get the player first connected with, all right, here's how lore works, here's how moving armies work and fighting works, and then for later missions they become a little bit more spread out and almost sandbox-like, where you have multiple ways of approaching an objective. But this first mission is a little bit more streamlined.
Gotcha.
So one new feature actually, this Lord Aspiration, which I haven't seen in the previous beta version, we've added to try and give a little bit more spice and differentiates the fights a little bit. So this is Cecilia Dracula's aspiration for this fight. So I can see what I need to do to level this up and unlock these bonuses for this fight. So this is something that we draw randomly out of a set pool, and then will be different for each fight.
And these buffs are permanent, or just for the battle?
Just for the battle.
Okay.
So for the next battle, you'll draw a new ambition, and it might be something completely different then, and you have to rank that up again.
Okay, gotcha.
But this is just a secondary objective. Another thing we've added, I don't think we have that in the beta, is these shrines. So these are points on the map there. If you're standing next to them, your units will gain an extra effect. So I'll start the battle by placing my units a bit here. Something like that. And we start the fight. So as you can see, it's tile-based, and we have an initiative system that decides who moves where, and that's completely decided by the initiative stat on the unit. So there's no randomization in that.
Cool.
But we do some things that can lower or increase an initiative of a unit.
And I guess this first... Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Go on.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, I didn't notice the cards earlier, but I just saw them pop up. So I guess the cards are still in play, yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to get there. So these are then Cecilia's combat spells, as we call them. So these are connected to her as a lord. And if you had another lord in combat, you would have a complete different set of spells. So as you can see on these cost mana, they have a cooldown, they have a range, and whenever it's your turn, either your lord's or any other of your units' turn, you can cast a spell. You can cast how many spells you want on one given turn. But as I mentioned, they do have the mana cost and do have the cooldown. So if you waste all your spells early, you're probably not going to have them available to you later in the fight when you might need them most. For now, though, I'll just use this Bloodlust card to lose some health but gain some more damage for this turn and start attacking these guys over here.
Nice.
Yeah, and as you can see, all attacks, or basically all attacks unless you have a specific keyword, have a counter attack. So these guys are already quite weak, but
Oh man.
positioning is also something that's really important. You can see here I can attack this guy from 2 different angles, and depending on where I do, I'll either get a half flank bonus, which will deal some extra damage, 10%, or I can get a full flanking attack here, which will do 25% more damage because Cecilia is either adjacent to or directly across.
I see. Are there any other types of positioning bonuses, like height advantages or anything like that?
No height advantage. But we can see here, for instance, I'll get a half flank, but I'll also stand next to this Empowered Remains shrine, so I'll get even more attack damage.
Nice.
And then we also have units that have the flying keyword that can then ignore terrain obstacles like these, so there's a lot of moving parts.
Very cool. Huh, interesting. So positioning and tactics and flanking is all playing a very important role in every battle, I take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are these battle maps all generated, or are they pre-built?
The battle maps are pre-made, but I think in total we have 36 of them, and it's randomized which side of the battle map you start on, so in effect it becomes closer to 70 unique maps.
Yeah, awesome.
Alright, so we won that fight. I get this nice battle report where I can see that my units actually gained veterancy. We can see that by that military rank marker there. So my units will increase in veterancy, become stronger as long as they survive combat encounters. I can also see that Cecilia gained experience and leveled up here. So our lords also gain level. And here's a unique part of the Dracul Might. This is Dracul Might. We want to celebrate the Dracul faction. Is all about fighting and being victorious in battle. So you gain an extra action here from winning that fight.
Oh, nice.
And also as part of this campaign mission, we gain some extra action cards here.
The foolishness of these
I'll
mortal
talk about
rebels
these
knows
shortly.
no boundaries.
First, I'll
Taking
focus a little bit more on
arms against
Cecilia
their
still.
masters.
So as I mentioned, she leveled up. She then, of course, gained some extra bonus stats, but I also get to upgrade one of her spell cards. So this is a way that you can kind of specialize the lord to your playstyle. So for instance, the Bloodlust card that I played, I can choose to upgrade that, and then I get the choice of 3 different twists on that card. So I can remove the health cost, or I can lower the cooldown and mana cost, and I can make sure that when it targets another unit also affects my lord. So you can kind of customize these cards to your own playstyle.
Very cool. And how many upgrades per card is there?
There's 3 upgrades per card, and then we have around 50 of these spell cards in the game. So with the upgrades, around 200 different variations on them.
Insane. Wow.
Yeah, another thing that kind of separates us from a lot of other 4X games is the way you interact with the map. We don't have this thing where you simply say select recruit building and start queuing up the recruitment of wolves. The way you interact with the map is either through these actions or through lords. So for instance, I can play this Finnblood recruit action on a village to drain the population but gain some forces.
Oh.
And then that costs 12 blood and
The mortals
remove the
prove a
card from
bigger
play.
challenge than expected.
I'll
These
just
reinforcements will
merge
serve
these
us
with my
well.
army. And the other way I mentioned was, as I said, army actions. So, for instance, here I'm standing in the Wishing Stone province, which gives me access to the Gather Power action. So because I have a lord in an army and I'm standing here, I can then make use of this Wishing Stone province.
I see.
So here I get to choose then a bonus for my army. I'll choose to replenish a mana, seeing as we spent some in that last fight.
Oh, so your mana use carries over between turns, or?
Yeah, we can see it here in the bottom left.
Oh, I see.
Right now I have 34 mana and I have a passive regeneration of 3.
Got it.
So you can spend as much as you want, but then if you know that you're going to be fighting right after the next battle, you might want to preserve some, or if you know that you have an action that replenishes mana, then you can feel free to go ahead.
Makes sense. Cool.
I'll also play this veterans action to further increase my unit's veterans a bit. I'll actually quickly jump into a bit of sandbox mode to show you some other features that aren't highlighted in this first campaign mission.
Right, because they're locked behind the campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
Those cards that you got in the campaign, are they random as well, or does the campaign give you pre-selected cards?
For that, we have a bit. It's different from scenario to scenario, actually. Those cards I drew there were preset for, like, all right, we won this fight, so here, let's give you a recruitment card, a healing card, and a veterancy card. But in other elements, we draw them randomly.
Okay, very cool. Got it.
So now I'm in a sandbox map. I've played, I think, around 4 turns, so not that many, but I've claimed some nearby territory here to gain access to some buildings. I can show here the win condition for this sandbox here. As you can see, it isn't moved to a specific point, it's just reach clan level 20. So it's much more of an open-ended objective. And I'll go into clan level here, actually. So all of our actions in the game we gain clan experience. For instance, when I claim this territory here, we'll see a pop-up that says 100 experience. So that goes to my clan experience. So claiming new territory, fighting enemy armies gives you clan experience. And this is kind of our take on a tech tree. We didn't want it to just be a passive, all right, choose this upgrade, wait 5 turns and get it. We want the player to work for this and constantly fight to develop their clan. So whenever you level up here, you get a point to spend, and here you can upgrade your lord's attack, make them stronger, upgrade your units, unlock new units, give your clan other passive effects. So
awesome. Okay, so the tech tree is directly connected with how aggressively you're playing.
yeah.
And is this still the Dracul faction, or is this a different faction you're playing as?
No, this is the Moroia faction, actually. So these guys are all about, as I mentioned, casting spells. And I'll make sure to get in a little bit of combat action with them as well. Here we have a manor building that I'm going to claim and use the turn action at. So this is how we get new lords for our army and create new armies, I guess, on the map. So here we get to see a selection of available humans in this manor. So I can choose which one of these do I want to choose to turn into a vampire lord. So I can see their background. This one is a lore master, and I can see what traits they have and when they will unlock these different levels, and I can see what spell cards will be available to them. So I'll turn this guy for a blood cost, and then I get him as a card I can summon at one of my keeps.
Okay, interesting.
And then I have a new lord, a secondary army where I get access to the recruit actions, and I can start moving around the map with 2 armies.
Wow. So so you have to get a manor if you want to get another lord. So you want to make sure you get to the manor before others. Awesome. That's very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and these actually have a chance to every 4 turns to gain new humans or new available humans to them. So you don't normally have to push out. You can have one close to your base, but it does require that you have a lord there that spends the time to actually perform that action.
Right.
Alright, we have some Dracul troops here. We're gonna make sure to chase him down before we end.
Finish them off.
Yeah, exactly.
Wipe them out.
Another short mechanic that we didn't see in the first campaign mission is what we call quests. These are just short side objectives where you can say like, all right, what am I want to focus on for the next coming turns, or do I feel that all right, well we're gonna be fighting some units here, so let's take this quest and gain some extra rewards for chasing this guy down.
Mm-hmm.
So here you can see we have the outer resolve available, but seeing as I want to show off the Moroia a little bit, I'm just gonna
Totally. Yeah, let's dive in. Now, I noticed that seasons are being listed. Does it make a difference, or is that just for your turn names?
Yeah, that's just for our turn names.
Okay,
really,
cool.
We have a yearly card to draw, for instance, where you get new actions. So we've split that into 4. So it's mainly just to keep track of that, like where you're at.
Got it. Awesome.
Here we can see both our Lord and the enemy's Lord's aspiration. I quickly place my units a little bit here. So the Moroia, they are all about looking good and casting powerful spells. So we have Elizabeth Moroia as the leader of the clan, a ranged spellcaster. We have a couple other ranged spellcasting units. We have our Fencer, which is our tier 1 melee combatant. This guy, unlike the Finnblood Spearman, is not tanky at all. It's more about hit and runs and getting up behind the enemy and flanking and such like that. So
Nice.
speed up the combat a little bit here. We're talking the game speed, so we have 3 different speeds, say normal a little bit faster than an instant where the units will teleport all around the map.
Cool.
Alright.
Knowledge is ours.
So it sounds like, yeah, these guys are extremely different from, because they're more like glass cannons, it sounds like. They'll just break if they get in a melee. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So, and also one of the things about ranged units, they don't have that counterattack feature. So if he would attack me now with his Lord on his next turn, I won't hit back.
Got it.
So I'll even make sure to play this charm card on him, which is really strong. It stops him from attacking or retaliating for 1 turn, so we can just move around aimlessly. Start flanking these archers over here as well.
Now, of the 3 factions, are there any that you'd recommend is easier or harder?
Yeah, we kind of structured the campaign in that way, that the Dracula are a bit more straightforward. They have a lot of troops that are really strong at just getting in the face of whatever they're fighting and just battling it out. So they are the first clan you play in the campaign, and then you play the Nosferatu, which are introduce a little bit more of these mechanics where they are a little bit more different and a little bit harder to play. They have a lot of summoning spells that you need to use to big effect and damage over time spells, and then we play these Moroia, which are more, I'd say, the hardest clan to play, both economically in the kingdom mode, but also with the how you position them and make use of their abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So as I haven't got an opportunity to show it earlier, but we also have our abilities on our units. You can see in the bottom right we have our heal ability here and a bombard ability. These are all detailed in the Mystics unit card, which you can see in bottom left. Is scrolling text. We show what keywords this guy has, like ranged attack is also flying, as I mentioned. We can move across the terrain, and also has those heal and bombard abilities. So this is a little bit of extra functionality.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm gonna make sure to win this fight real quick. I'm gonna use this Eldritch Bomb, which is a unique spell to Elizabeth Moroia. She's the only character in the game that has this spell. It's a spend all your mana and deal a lot of damage spell.
Good spell.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I also killed my own fencer there, but
A little bit of self-sacrifice is fine.
yeah. Alright, 1 guy left. I'll just wait when units here. This is command. Just put him at the end of the initiative queue. Finish him off with this fencer.
Nice.
I'll just quickly mention one of the features I didn't have time to show off is also on our lords we also have an item system. So you can fight certain bosses in the campaign to gain items, which increases stats and gives keywords. And we also have, I'll cheat a bit here. I'll not go there. We also have blacksmiths, which is a place where you can buy items for your lord and upgrade these guys as well to provide more powerful items.
So you can
Yeah.
either forge those items, or you can win them in like through quests and battles and all.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
in Sandbox, the main way you're going to get them is by purchasing them here. In the campaign, it's more about finding side bosses which will give it an extra combat reward.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, I think that's... Any final questions? I think otherwise I think we're out of time.
Yeah, I'll keep them short, but just wondering, so you mentioned we've got single player campaign, we've got Sandbox, and we've got the skirmish mode, which is just the battles. Is there any plans for multiplayer to play with your friends, co-op or versus? Or?
No, it's going to be single player only.
Cool, okay. And in terms of difficulty curves, is it like very fine-tuned settings, or is it kind of broad, easy, medium, hard, or anything like that?
The campaign has been fine-tuned, I'd say. It's structured around one difficulty, which we feel that it'll challenge players of really all strategic levels. You can kind of, depending on how much time you want to take per mission, like you're gonna get challenged. And the Sandbox, you can tweak some settings, how much advantage you want to give the AI or how much advantage you want to give you. So that's more tweakable to your liking.
Oh, okay, cool. I think that's all the questions that are coming to mind right now, but the game is looking absolutely gorgeous. I love the art style, and the aesthetic is great, and it's sounding very interesting with how the campaign and Sandbox mode plays out with all these hot spots. So really excited to see how it actually ends up. Thank you for your time. Thanks for the tour around this dark and very dangerous world.
Yeah, thank you.
So there you have it. Immortal Realms Vampire Wars should be releasing later this year, and there's coverage of it from its time in beta out there already. It's feeling like a pretty interesting take on vampires and how they might feature as the sole focus in a strategy game. Typically with games, you tend to have a protagonist which is a bit more relatable. You'll find that very often, especially in fantasy settings. So it's interesting to see this challenge being taken on, and I'm definitely keeping an eye on this one. And again, if you'd like to keep up with coverage of the game or of other strategy and simulation games, make sure you subscribe to the channel. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of my channel members and patrons for supporting the channel on a monthly basis. You keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.